Every day we see more tents under bridges, more families living out of cars. And while the problems seem insurmountable, the solutions are simpler than you think. We share the real stories and the real solutions of homelessness, what works, what doesn't, and how communities like ours can do better. I'm Baron King, and this is Give Me Shelter. Well, hello. So today we're going to start by discussing a new concept in homeless solutions. It's called peer support. It's something that we've been doing at Chat Foundation for about a year, and it's showing really good results. And we have a guest with us today, Miss Marth Meeks, who is one of our rock stars at Chat Foundation. Martha, welcome to Give Me Shelter.
Oh, thank you, Baron. Thank you for inviting me and just giving me the opportunity to have this conversation.
Well, this is great. This is really good. I think everybody's going to really learn a lot on this session. So we're going to explore how homeless peer support can be a huge difference maker in the process of rehousing people. But when we talk about peer support, just in general, what are we talking about?
Well, just if you have a peer, then you know that that person, like a coworker, is somewhat like you and shares experience. So, in peer support, it's the same thing, except in a different lane. It involves experience with substance abuse or mental health. Just the peer support part of it, yeah.
And peer support in those two areas, mental illness and substance use, has been around for a while, right?
Yeah, I first got certified right before I got homeless. In 2008, I got certified for the first time, and I think it'd been around a few years at that time.
But when we talk about peer support for homeless support services, now it's a new area, right? It doesn't exist in the world in very many places. We're kind of piloting this. Talk
Yes.
about this.
Oh my gosh, this is so exciting to me. I think about 2 years ago, I met somebody through my collaborations with First Presbyterian. His name was John Veristecki, and we were trying to just put something together. And he came up with this idea of homeless peer support. And so we put this presentation proposal together and submitted it, and AmeriCorps picked it up, and I've been flying ever since.
That's great. That's
Yep.
great. So I think for the average person listening to this podcast, they're probably a little curious at why peer support is necessary. I think they may think that once you take somebody that's experiencing homelessness and you get them housed, boy, everything's good to
Yep.
go, right? But that's not the case.
It is not the case. It's nowhere near the case. For me, I was homeless for 7 years, and before homelessness, I had struggled ever since I was 16. My foster parents put me out at 16. My first abandoned house was at the age of 16. So after you've lived that life for so long, you do need somebody to come in and kind of walk with you and show you how to avoid the bumps that typically you would run into by yourself. You get short on money, and the first thing you do is skip rent or utilities because you're like, well, an organization will help me with that, but they're not going to help me with my car payment or insurance or child care or things like that. Yeah.
So, so what are some of the obstacles that you find that people have? We take somebody, we work with them, we find them housing, we have a date that they're going to move in. What are some of the obstacles that you find that people have that make it not that simple a transaction?
Wow. Something as basic as them not knowing how to get their utilities cut on, and they need a person there to support them, maybe to make the phone call and sit in the room with them so that they don't feel this odd feeling that they're feeling, maybe some guilt and shame because, oh, I don't know how to do this. I'm an adult and I don't know how to get my lights cut on because I've never had them cut on. Or maybe somebody else had them cut on with my Social Security number, and I'm concerned because I don't know if that bill's going to pop up. I mean, there's so many things. Yeah, a lot of things.
Yeah, when I started with Chat Foundation, it was probably in the first 4 or 5 months that I was with the organization. I was working with Dr. Tracy and her team, and we had a gentleman that had a housing voucher, and we found him an apartment. It was really exciting. So So case management picked him up, took him to the apartment for a walkthrough. It was probably 3 or 4 miles east of where we are on 11th Street. And we thought it was just going to be a great day of celebration. When Tracy and her team came back, Tracy came to me and said, he's not going to move in. And I said, why not? And this is somebody that had been unsheltered for quite a while, and I just assumed that housing's housing. It's a great opportunity. And some of the reasons that he gave was he didn't know anybody. There was no access to public transportation. There were no grocery stores in the area. And he really felt that he was going to be stuck in an apartment without any lifelines, without any support. And that really surprised me. But it sounds like that's not all that unusual.
Well, just think of if you're just a regular person and you're moving all the way across the country here to Chattanooga, Tennessee, you've never visited, and you just picked out this apartment on whatever.com.
Yeah.
You move in, but you don't know anybody here. You don't have any contacts. But you do have those types of capital that you were talking about.
Right.
You've already built that. You've got that job set up. So you've got social connections there that you can reach out to and network. And after a person's been homeless for a long period of time, they don't have those things to back them up and to support them and to make them empowered and strong. They don't have that.
Yeah. One of the things that really stuck out in that story I just told was that even though this individual didn't have his own dwelling, it didn't mean he didn't have a neighborhood. And it seemed that one of the things that he wasn't willing to sacrifice was his loss of community. Can you talk about how important that is?
Oh my, yes. Before I got homeless, I really didn't have a community. I had coworkers, and but after those 7 years, I got connected with First Presbyterian Church, and really they became my family because I'm an orphan. I have no brothers, sisters, mother, father, and so and been that way ever since I was very, very young. So it was nice to have people that called me, checked on me, but more so than that, just to get used to disappointing them and them not abandoning me. Like it was a process of years before I really trusted them with my truths.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And so when we have somebody that is on the pathway to housing, how do you work with them? How do you get started? What's that look like?
It looks like the promises in the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous. Sometimes quickly, sometimes slowly, but it will materialize if you work for them. And so it's just a matter of the participant and myself building a relationship where they trust me with their truth and their mess, and I don't go repeating it everywhere, and they figure out that I'm not going to do that. And then they trust me with more until we finally get to what's in the middle, that real messy stuff that they're so filled with shame. And it may not be something big to you or I, but it's big to them.
All right. So we've been doing these podcasts every other week since September of 2025. And I think this is the fourth, maybe fifth time I've heard the word trust come up. I've heard Joe Brackett talk about it. It's really hard to establish trust with people living unsheltered in encampments. I've talked with Dr. Hefner about how challenging it is to establish trust with people that have heard no or had bad news delivered to them. You mentioned trust. I think what is really important for our listeners to understand is that your own lived experience gives you a credibility that I don't have. I from my position, my role, I understand the systems. I know how to kind of work things for people. But what I can't do is say something that's really important, which is, I know what you're going through. I don't have the ability to do that. Talk a little bit about how your experience allows you to develop trust at maybe a deeper level than somebody like I could.
It's like going to war. You go to war and you trust those people with your life.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
expect them to have your back. And homelessness is a type of war. And so when you're in that mess, you build certain skills of just being able to connect with people. Um, over, I mean, like we can share stories about the rescue mission or St. Catherine's or St. Matt's, and I can connect with them on that level about what it feels like to stay in a shelter. I've lived in a tent, so I can speak to them on that and how best to survive in a tent in today's time with the criminalization. I make a lot of connections just from those 7 years that I suffered. It gets to benefit somebody else because I can say I actually have been there too.
So at Chat Foundation, we follow housing first protocols. We follow trauma informed best practices, and the whole reason is we recognize that getting somebody housed is not the end game. Is keeping them housed, helping them thrive, helping them uh, achieve and maintain self sufficiency throughout. We talk a little bit about some of the obstacles that people have in getting help, getting that assistance, making the best use of the opportunities that are around. And we talked a little bit, you and I, the other day about shame. Let's talk a little bit about how shame gets in the way of people making a successful transition from homelessness to housed.
Just shame of not knowing what you think you ought to know. Um, Somebody else knows something because they haven't been homeless. They've been housed and they have a home, and so they know how to function with technology and they know how to talk to people because they've had that experience in the workplace. So there's that shame of I'm just not good enough because I can't even be in the same room with this person and not feel this weight on my chest that I'm just not even good enough to be in here for this job interview or for this conversation. I'm just not good enough.
So, what do you tell people?
Oh, obviously you are good enough. Yeah, you are good enough, and you are where you're supposed to be, and you have skills and abilities and talents. You had them before you were homeless. You had them when you were born. God gave them to you, and they didn't go away. They may have got buried, somewhere deep, but we can dust it off. We can get it back to life if that's what you want.
Yeah.
But it has to be what you want. I can't make somebody want something for themselves that they don't want.
As a therapist, I've often said one of the most difficult places to be is when you want something for somebody else more than they want it for themselves.
Yeah. And the crushing experience of when you realize that they're not ready. Maybe they do want it, but they're
Yeah.
just not ready. And so you have to do a 360 and come back in a couple of months or a few months and see, well, are you ready now?
Yeah.
So, but yeah, you take some losses, but there's a lot of wins also.
Have you been surprised by some of the responses that people have given you as you're working with them? Can you talk about those?
I'm blown away because I did not know that I was a good listener. And apparently, Dr. Hefner says that I am because people they tell me stuff. They tell me everything, things that they probably shouldn't say, but they feel so comfortable with me. They just kind of dump it. And so I've had to learn how to take what they've dumped on me
Yeah.
and dump it also so that I don't carry it around with me and get that overwork syndrome, whatever they were talking about in that training a couple of months ago. Like, just get so bogged down with
Yeah.
everybody else's stuff. So I've gotten so good at dumping it at Friday afternoon when I'm
Good.
driving home, Lookout Valley. Yep.
Yeah, I think when you're working with people that are struggling, it can kind of reactivate some of our history, some of our memories, some of our experience, and there's no quick or easy way just to take a shower and wash that off of you. It does.
And a
It
lot of
does stick
times
with you.
the participants that I'm talking to, because as a peer support, I can share my story. I can actually get into the details of it. If they've opened up the door, and some of them even ask, well, what was your experience, Martha? Or I'll ask them, can I share about something that I experienced?
Yeah.
And I do. And the next thing you know, we're both crying. and then we hug and we both feel better. So it's not always somebody taken from
Yeah.
me. It really isn't.
Yeah.
It really works in my favor for a lot of it.
So you mentioned a little bit about technology, and I know from my last nonprofit where I worked with people reentering society from the prison system that the longer somebody's in prison, the bigger that gap is technologically. We would have people that would come out of prison after 10 or 15 years, and they didn't know what a smartphone was.
Hmm.
They were looking for payphones. It's hard to find a payphone
Mm.
on the street nowadays. And so, one of the things that you're involved with is you're a trainer for an organization that partners with us called Tech Goes Home.
Mhm.
Talk a little bit about what that's like, your work there, and why we do that.
Well, first of all, I got started with Tech Goes Home a few years ago. Just found the resource, and that's one of the things I'm really good at. I just dig for resources if I don't have any money. And so I took the class, and one of the trainers was like, Martha, you should take the trainer's course and you could be a teacher. And I was like, well, sure, why not?
Yeah.
And so I did, and I got trained. And I think I taught my first class at First Presbyterian, and then I taught the next class at Chat Foundation last May.
Okay.
Yeah.
And explain to people what Tech Goes Home. How does it work?
Chat Goes Home is a nonprofit that believes that we should connect the population that low income, impoverished, homeless. They don't have the resources to get the training or get the piece of equipment. And so they come in and they give you a free Chromebook if you attend 15 hours of training by a certified trainer. And we give you the knowledge that you need based on the population. I do computer basics. That's all I've done in adult learning, because that's my niche right there. That's
Yeah.
my population, and that's where I'm comfortable. So, but you'd be so mixed. Just it blows my mind. Okay, there's people that don't have an email,
Okay. That's
and
hard to imagine. Yeah.
they don't know that a Gmail is an email. Because I'd be
Okay.
like, "Do you have an email?" No, I have a Gmail. So they don't even know to distinguish the difference that a Gmail is an email. Not every email is a Gmail, but every Gmail is an email. They don't know that.
Okay. That's very interesting. And I think for those listening, imagine how different life would be if you didn't have a laptop, you didn't have a smartphone, you didn't have access to technology.
Mm.
Um, More and more, it's getting hard to do anything
Hmm.
without technology.
It is.
And so, asking people just to jump right in when they're not even
Assuming they
sure,
know.
right, without even establishing whether they have ever had an email address. Yeah.
Yeah. Or if they can read or write. I've had two participants in the last year and a half that could not read or write. But there was a way made for them to be able to understand, or hard of hearing, or hard of seeing. So that's where the tricks come in to make the font bigger.
Right.
If you have struggles with your eyesight, or if you struggle to hear, then you can do the TTY and it'll pop up and it'll show you words. So there's a way around it.
Yeah.
You can get involved with that if that's what you want.
So, so why is this important? Imagine if you're trying to move forward in life and have some stability. We talk about how important technology is to find job opportunities, and right now with so many safety net programs going away or frozen, being able to better yourself through the best possible paying job you can get is
Yeah.
really important. What about like accessing like medical resources or other benefits? If you don't have the technology, you really don't have access.
Oh, I moved from my first place to a duplex over in East Ridge, and I had no internet. I had a government phone, and that was free, of course. And I was trying to find a job, and so there was a little church, and I could get the Wi-Fi from that. It was East Ridge Presbyterian Church, and I'd sit in the parking lot for hours until the phone died, putting in applications.
Wow.
Yeah, it was so difficult. I remember those first years off the street. It was not easy.
Yeah. What when you think about your own journey, and um, you were homeless for 7 years, right?
Yes.
And you've been housed 8 now.
10.
10. Wow.
Let's
Wow.
celebrate.
Time flies.
This is 10 years. March 15th of this year was 10 years solid.
So you had been housed, then you experienced homelessness, and then you're transitioning back into being housed. What do you remember as the most challenging aspects of that transition?
Letting people in.
Explain that.
I'm a do it by myself kind of girl. Like, I don't wait on anybody. I just do it. And you can't survive in life like that, I've found out. It's not healthy nor natural to do it alone and to have that syndrome. But after being exposed to certain types of abuse in your youth, you sometimes get this mindset that, well, I don't need anybody because people don't show up for you. So you just stop thinking that you need people or pretend that you don't need them. And you build this big, tough shell. But God just came in and he was like, girl, not this time. You have got to let people in. If you don't want to go through that again, you got to let some people in. And so I started getting closer and closer to my friends at First Pres.
Is that scary?
Oh, God, it's still terrifying. Yeah. I'm still waiting for the harm to happen. But church, harm happens in church.
It does.
You kind of have to understand and move through it, to pray through it, to have your support group that understands and helps you walk past that speed bump.
Yeah. So for our listeners, what are some things that you would want them to know about the experience of homelessness?
That's a crying moment right there. I never thought I'd be homeless. And I didn't even understand that I was homeless even before I was homeless. Like, I've been homeless ever since I was 16, and my foster parents put me out. Yeah, because I had never had a place in my name with utilities in my name that nobody could put me out of. I was always just an extra in the house, paying bills.
Okay.
So I never had ownership of anything. The first place I had my name was the place I had when I got homeless. I had been there for 3 years, same job, 3 years. But due to those, I had lost my therapist that I'd had for years, and I had a child that I was caring for, and the parent came back in the picture and was ready for the child to go with them, and I wasn't prepared for that. So I had a giant nervous breakdown.
Yeah.
I took FMLA time and tried to go back, and my supervisor literally had to call a cab, and I'd just leave my car parked there. And I tried that several times, and I couldn't figure out what's wrong with me because I have a superpower of falling down and being able to get back up. That's who I am. But not that one. That situation knocked me down so far. It took me 7 years to recover. Yeah.
And I think a lot of people that aren't too close to this topic of homelessness sometimes make easy and inaccurate assumptions that, well, people are homeless because they have a substance use issue or they're lazy or something. You were working,
I was in college full time.
Yeah, you weren't using drugs or alcohol.
Nope, at all.
And yet you hit one of those life obstacles that knocked you down farther than you could get back up at the time.
Yeah.
And then you became homeless. And then, so back to this question of what would you want people to know about homelessness?
I would want them to know, first of all, that Jesus was homeless. And I would want them to know that I did not expect to be homeless. You go to work, you go to church as much as you can that your schedule will allow. You're kind to people, and then you should be okay. That's just the way I lived my life.
Yeah.
And that's not how it worked out.
Yeah.
So it could happen to anybody. It could at any moment.
Yeah. And I suspect that that's one of the challenges about this topic is that knowing how many Americans live paycheck to paycheck, that it is finances are usually the single biggest worry that people have. I think we're all a little scared that, hey, it could happen to me. And if it does, then what?
Then what?
Yeah.
If I don't have a mother, father, grandparents, brother, sister who can come in, scoop me up, and love me back to living, then there's a big problem because that means I'm going to end up on the street. And if I'm not already on drugs or living a bad lifestyle, I'm going to be exposed to that in amounts that are so hard to turn down.
Sure.
Very much so. Like it was so difficult to remain off drugs for 7 years.
Yeah.
I mean, there was a few times I smoked a little weed and I'd take a few shots before I went to bed. But to do that and to be of sober mind 99% of the time was one of the toughest things I ever did.
Yeah. And I think for a lot of people, when they think about illicit drug or alcohol use, it's this idea that, ooh, we're just partying, we're having a good time. My experience in working with people experiencing homelessness is no, we see people that are using substances to medicate chronic conditions, to medicate fear, to simply survive one day. I mean, the average person comes home and has a glass of wine just to relax. I think when you're unsheltered, a glass of wine doesn't cut it often. And so while I'm not saying I'm condoning drug and alcohol use, I
course.
totally understand it.
Yeah.
And
It's a coping mechanism. And if you don't have people to support you, to talk with you, and to love on you, then of course the quickest thing to get to is something that's not good for your mind or your body.
right. And I don't know a whole lot of people experiencing homelessness that have access to prescription medications that might help them with those symptoms. So if I'm
Yeah.
really anxious or really depressed, I can't just go to the pharmacy. I don't have the money. I don't have the prescription. And so what's available on the street is the next best option.
And even if you are homeless and you have a medical support, like I had some type of insurance, I think safety net when I got homeless, but they would not. They ended my prescription for anxiety medication when I got homeless because I was homeless, and they said that I would probably sell it. And that didn't make sense to me at that time because I didn't really know that world. Like
Right.
7 years immersed, know that world. I knew it in bits and pieces over my life, but I didn't know that you had the stigma on you, and so you couldn't receive the medication that you've been taking for years.
Yeah.
But now that you're homeless, you can't have it anymore because you're a junkie.
Yeah.
I never understood that.
Yeah. And in Tennessee, it's even a little bit more difficult because we're not a Medicaid expansion state. And
Oh, God, let's don't get into that.
yeah, that's probably a topic for another time.
It is.
All right. Martha, I got one more question for
Okay.
you. If I gave you a magic wand and you could change one thing, what would you change?
I would mandate that everyone that has this stigma and this judgment towards those of us who are experiencing homelessness or have experienced homelessness to go into a virtual homeless situation. When I worked at Alexian Brothers, the memory care unit on Mountain Creek Road.
Yes.
So when I first started working there, they had us do this virtual dementia thing.
Yes.
And you could really feel and sense the insanity and the uncertainty that was going on, and you could not make good choices then or come out with the right answers, And I really would ask that people do that and just have that experience. I don't think there's some people that will ever understand or support our cause because there's always going to be that judgment. You are lazy. You did this to yourself. Now fix it. And I pray for those people, but lack of understanding causes a lot of chaos in this world. And so to get more understanding, I would ask that they experience the situation, just even if on a minuscule level.
Yeah. There's a really good book, and we'll pop it up on the screen here. It's called When We Walk By, and it's covers a lot of assumptions that people make about homelessness. And one of the things that stuck with me was something that was in the book. It's that most people think that people are homeless because they make bad choices. And they don't recognize that sometimes people in certain situations or circumstances only have bad choices to make, that they
Amen.
don't have good choices to make. And so a lot of the people that we're working with, we think, well, if you just choose the good decision rather than the bad decision, things will be different. But what if you only have 2 or 3 options and they all come with a serious side effect or a serious complication?
Well, that was my life. I grew up like that. There were no good choices. It was either the bad choice or the worst choice or the ungodly choice. And I tried to stay away from the ungodly version of me as much as possible because then the guilt and the shame would increase. So I'm trying to make the best choice out of 3 bad choices. I'm still ending up on the wrong side of the tracks. And you continue to judge me instead of just reaching out to a hand and saying, how can I help you?
Yeah.
And first by just, my name is,
Yeah.
how are you? And are you okay today? Can I do something for you? Do you need something to eat? I mean, oh gosh. Everybody, they just get so anxious about this helping situation when they show up well-intentioned, good hearts and everything, but lack of knowledge.
Yeah.
And the people perish with lack of knowledge.
Sure.
I mean, let's get scriptural here for a minute.
Yeah. Yeah. So I love the fact that you have this history and you could have just gotten yourself housed, turned your back on your experience, done something for yourself. But instead, you've really dedicated your life to using your experience as a tool to help other people.
Yeah.
And that impresses me to no end. that
It
you're
wasn't
willing
the
to do
plan,
that.
Baron. It wasn't the plan. It was God's plan, not mine.
Well, I am grateful
But
for
thank
what
you.
you do because, like I said, I think this tool of using peer support for homeless support services it has the possibility to be a game changer.
It does. It really
And
does.
so, if you're an organization out there, if you're a service provider out there, please contact us. You can reach us at info@chatfoundation.org. I'll put you in touch with Martha, and maybe you can make this work in your community. But we've been running this for about a year, and it's been very, very positive. So
And
thank
hopefully
you.
we'll be doing it for another year.
Amen.
And anybody that wants to just come by and set up an appointment with me just to really get some information about the real nitty gritty of what I do on a day-to-day basis, I would love to speak with you.
Excellent.
I did want to touch on the barriers to housing. That was so important, and
Okay.
I just missed that altogether. So there's some barriers to our population getting housed, and it has a lot to do with background checks and criminal background checks. We are so blessed to have like 3 landlords that I work with that don't put those barriers on our population. They just ask them to pay the bills. And so by creating a budget with my participants and checking in with them, like before the rent is due, make sure to check on that because we don't want to create another barrier. We want to support these landlords that have just opened their hearts and their homes to us and our population by making sure that our population is equipped and empowered to know when is rent due, how do I pay it, and a lot of that does have to do with technology because a lot of these are portals now. You don't deal with a human being. So,
Yeah.
but that barrier, just from the work that I've done the last year, it's been the biggest one. And so, again, I'm so thankful for those handful of landlords that have reached out to us and
Yeah.
said, how can we help Chat Foundation?
Well, and we also know that there's landlords all throughout our area that don't want to rent to people experiencing homelessness because they've been burned in the past. And oftentimes, these individuals got assistance from organizations that got them housed but didn't follow them on the journey.
Yeah.
And one of the things that we're very proud of is our goal is to make every rehousing a very successful one. And so we've started to develop some good relationships, like you said, with landlords that know, okay, if somebody's coming to us from Chad Foundation, I can expect that they're going to get that support, and it's going to be a good experience.
It is, and it has. I've seen the evidence of the difference that it's making. Just building that bridge between the landlord and the tenant, and inserting me in there when necessary to kind of mediate some situations to keep them from going bad, so we can keep that housing retention. We need to keep you in there, and I tell my guys, I'm like, I need you to stay a year. Just focus on a year right now, and then we can figure out what comes next. But you've got to get a year under your belt as a house person, and staying on the same job. We want you on the same job in the same house for a year. That is my ultimate goal with every client that I have.
Oh, and that's smart, and that creates stability, and you can build off that.
Amen.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you can build capital in other areas with that too, which I keep going back to that episode because it meant so much to me, because when you show up homeless, you're all out of capital.
Yeah.
And so when you get housed, if you can stay in that house and stay on that job for a year, you build that social capital, and now you have something to, as I say, take to the bank with you.
Well, I love when my guests plug an episode, but if you're not sure what Martha was referring to, we did an episode a couple months ago called 4 Types of Capital, which is an interesting look into what's necessary to have a safe and secure life. And if you don't have it, then you're at risk.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, that's all the time we have for today. Thank you so much, Martha, for carving out some time for us.
Thank you.
And look forward to hearing more stories in the future.
I look forward to making more stories.
Amen. Thank you.
Amen.
Thanks for listening to Give Me Shelter. If you made it this far in the episode, I invite you to share it with at least one person today, because change happens one conversation at a time. I'm Baron King. We'll see you next time.